Hi everyone, Heidi here from Live, Play, Learn, and talking with you today about our first Busting Myths episode. And this one we are starting with the myth that unschooling is the same as unparenting. Quite often we talk about unschooling and allowing our children to be themselves and allowing our children to develop naturally, and because the world at large, the society that we live in particularly, doesn't support that generally, it has forgotten how children behave and how children are, and mostly it has forgotten that it is okay for them to be children. So the real issue, I feel, with this misconception that unschooling is akin to unparenting revolves largely around discipline and how unschoolers respond differently to mainstream families when their children are displaying behaviours that are not in line with society's expectations. So, as an unschooling parent, you won't find me publicly or privately shaming or disciplining my children, either by using punishment or by using rewards as such, because it is not my aim to control my children or manipulate them in some way to have them conform to the societal expectation of the situation that we are in. Now, there's lots in there about preparing my children for different scenarios. There's lots in there about supporting my children and enabling them to achieve certain requirements in certain situations, and that in itself isn't unparenting. That is supporting our children and enabling them to engage in wider society if and when we require them to for any reason, or if and when they want to for any reason. But we don't reprimand them when things get tricky for them, or when their behaviours aren't in line with wider expectations. Now, what happens is that people can view those moments in our day, hopefully few and far between, but particularly when they're really young, because the expectation between really young children who are, for example, in school and children that aren't is vastly different. And what can happen is, in those moments that others maybe witness, they can be viewed as unschooling families, parenting in line with an unparenting style, based on the behaviours, natural, normal behaviours of our children. But these natural, normal behaviours are not ones that are commonplace in mainstream society because of the way that we are parenting. Now, what unschoolers are doing, which underlines my point about unschooling not being unparenting, what unschoolers are doing, in addition to lots of prep work for certain situations and lots of prep work with their children, conversations, setting out expectations and how we're going to manage those and meet those, usually travelling around with a bag full of tricks and activities, etc. But in the moment where our children are struggling, in the moment where they are becoming overwhelmed, in the moments when they are too loud or emotionally distressed, in those moments, how we respond as parents, how unschoolers respond as parents, sets out that unschooling is not unparenting. So this is what we're doing. We are doing things like connecting with our children, physically sitting on the floor with them, being with them. Okay, if it's appropriate, we will do things like guiding their behaviours. If not, we will just physically be there, observing what's going on, physically touching them if that's appropriate, holding them, stroking them, whatever our children are comforted by, but we are physically with them, okay? We are connecting with them. Other things we are doing is maybe guiding them, talking to them about what's going on around us, explaining things to them. Sometimes we're just observing from the sidelines, seeing how they're managing interactions for themselves, but being available to step in, redirecting them if we feel that that's appropriate onto something else, diverting them away from the thing that's causing anxiety or stress. And you will find that parents of children in an unschooling family are very much engaged with what is happening, and they are trying to understand what difficulty the child is having, and they are helping that child to emotionally regulate and helping that child move to a safe space, or helping that child to resolve the problem that they are having. They are very much engaged with their children, and that is fundamentally the difference between unschooling and unparenting. Our children are not left on their own. They're not left to fend for themselves. They are guided and supported by their loving adults in their lives. It just occurred to me, actually, that I could give you lots of examples, okay, because I have 4 children, and we don't get things right all the time, and sometimes things happen that are unforeseeable, and we have to manage those. But this is a really good one. When my youngest, so 4 children, so when my youngest wasn't quite a year old, we went camping. Extended family came too, and we went out for dinner one evening, and my children aren't overly used to eating out. Wasn't something that we'd done a lot, because physically managing 4 children in a restaurant, we put that in the box of that's not for us right now. But wider family were there, we all went out, we chose a place with a play area. I had a little baby, just under a year old, so we were still doing lots of sleeping and feeding, and we were camping as well. It was exhausting. Now my eldest was 8 years old at the time, had never been to school, and it was the end of the day, and he was hungry, and we were in a strange place, and those were contributing factors, but I don't actually know. That might have been all the factors, but I don't actually know what occurred. But he cried, and he ended up under the table, bawling his eyes out, screaming. It was a bit of a mess. My husband was outside with my other 2 on the play area, and I was with my little baby. My mum got down on the floor and sat under the table with him. And that is the difference in an unschooling family. She sat under the table with him, and she calmed him, and she spoke to him, and waited for food to come, and it was a beautiful moment. So in conclusion, if you want to tell me that unschooling is unparenting, I'm going to tell you otherwise. And I'm going to tell you that the benefits of allowing our children and supporting our children to figure out for themselves how to manage their emotions, and how to regulate themselves, and to be free to express themselves in those ways is beautiful and mentally healthy. So I'm going to leave that with you for this week, and I will speak to you again soon. Thank you for listening.